live on the web. My name is Nancy Newman. I'm the founder and president of the International Action Network for Gender Equity and Law. A mouthful of a name. It goes by a handy acronym, IANGEL. We have so much to celebrate this evening. First, we celebrate International Women's Day because the women of this world matter. Yes. We celebrate early feminists like Clara Zetkin and Rosa Luxemburg, who first celebrated International Women's Day over 100 years ago as a means to promote women's right to vote, to hold office, and to participate fairly in all aspects of society. Last week, Cecilia and I celebrated International Women's Day in New York City at the United Nations 59th NGO Conference on the Status of Women. It was awesome. There, with thousands of amazing, powerful NGO leaders, feminists, and advocates, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the historic Beijing Platform for Action for Gender Equality in the New Millennium. And while it was noted the many challenges to implementation and the goals that had not quite been achieved, we emerged from the conference energized and resolved to continue our work to promote the rights of women and girls globally. In this way, International Women's Day provides a focal point for all of us to rejoice in the amazing love and the strength and the wisdom of the women of this world, and to recommit ourselves personally and professionally to doing what each of us can to fight the injustice and discrimination that continues to burden so many mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters. Which brings me to the second cause for our celebration this evening, IANGEL's second anniversary. We started as a plucky band of feminist lawyers from San Francisco, Milwaukee, Slovakia, and Nigeria. Our articles of incorporation were filed exactly 2 years and 3 days ago to become a new nonprofit dedicated to harnessing the power of pro bono legal services and connecting it to the cause of women's rights, locally, nationally, and around the world. We exist because the status quo is not acceptable, because women do not have equal rights or equal pay, because women are entitled to opportunity and education. They're entitled to decide whether and when and whom to marry, and whether and when to have children. And they must be free to live without threat of violence, oppression, and subjugation. And while the need for education and advocacy and legal services to address these issues is huge and cavernous, the power of people to affect change on these issues, the power that is in this room now and in so many law firms and universities and bar associations is equally vast, but largely untapped. IANGEL exists to connect the one to the other. Our tagline is connecting for justice worldwide. And that's what we do, and that's what we have done in our 2 short years of existence. In those 2 years, we've hosted events and briefings on women's rights and human rights to give voice to academics and advocates and leaders and journalists from Uganda, Afghanistan, Tibet, South Asia, India, and Nigeria. We've taken action ranging from responding to an urgent need for legal assistance on a case of widows' abuse in Nigeria, to joining a coalition to promote the use of the United Nations Convention to end all forms of discrimination against women as a tool to promote gender equality at the local level in the Cities for CEDAW campaign. We've posted, we've blogged, we've tweeted. That was a new one for me. And we have developed amazing partnerships and friendships with inspiring advocates and organizations that do so much for women, including, of course, equal rights advocates and the Hague Domestic Violence Project that are recognized here this evening, but also the Bangladesh National Women Lawyers Association, the Women's Intercultural Network, the Czech Helsinki Project addressing forced sterilization issues, the Research and Advocacy Unit in Zimbabwe working on laws to reform child marriage, and Musawa, a global movement for Islamic feminism. And through it all, we inspired about 50 legal professionals to stand up and volunteer their time to work for women's rights and to help us build our network across cities, states, oceans, and continents. While the response to our work so far has been overwhelming and really heartwarming, it's fair to note that some have asked me, why do you do this? It's true, there are other organizations that do pro bono work, and there are other organizations that work on women's rights. But to the skeptics, I say, worry not. There is plenty of injustice to go around. IANGEL does not compete with those organizations. We embrace them, for we are all in this struggle together. And some have said, how can you expect to make a difference against the forces of violence and extremism that plague this earth? Those forces do not truly represent any religion. They are forces of ignorance and emptiness. They are remnants of broken spirits and waning humanity. But I can think of no better answer to those forces than for people of goodwill to join together with the same fierce and relentless and fearless commitment to work for equality, justice, and peace. You may think, or you may sometimes feel, that you are powerless to make a difference in this world on these kinds of issues, against these kinds of forces, but you are not. One person can make a difference. Each of us can make a difference. I have seen it, I have felt it, and I know it is true. Together, we are a powerful force. IANGEL is about using that power and founded on the principle that each of us has an obligation to do what we can to build a better world. Thank you all so much for being here to celebrate with us.
So as Nancy was describing, there are a number of different projects that we've worked on over the last 2 years. And in particular, there's 2 of them, and not that they're exceptional to the others, but just as the others, that have been really wonderful, and we wanted to share some information about 2 of those with you. So the first one we wanted to talk about is the Hague Domestic Violence Project. And so this one I wanted to just share with all of you because it's rather timely. The Hate Domestic Violence Project is a project of the Goldman School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley. They have been working on putting together an attorney practice guide. And to that end, we have partnered with them and got support from a number of different lawyers to get inputs on this guide and to make it something that was relevant and easy to read and accessible for people even coming from different fields of law who would be interested in taking on this kind of work. So to kind of dive into it a little bit more, or to go from, the copy of a practice guide to what it actually means. Some of the reason that I'm particularly excited about this is there's one woman that I know who, in our community here in San Francisco, and she's a Congolese woman who had fled domestic violence in her home country. In the process, she had also gone through rape and torture there, and had very strongly, amazingly made her way to San Francisco. Unfortunately, her son is still back home, and she has a small son. He's something like 3 years old. And so, in talking to her caseworker, one of the concerns that we had was, we'd finally been able to get her granted asylum through the support of some amazing psychologists and some amazing medical professionals who could provide affidavits for her, and an incredible lawyer who worked on her case pro bono. But then when it came down to it, the question still, and the major concern for her, was how does she make sure that her son is safe? And so a lot of these questions about domestic violence and what happens, and what this is really addressing, is that when somebody tries to flee one country, and if they try and take their child with them, they can be seen as abducting the child by international law. And in the case of domestic violence survivor, we don't think that that should be the case. So we're working with the Goldman School of Public Policy and also a number of different organizations that have signed on to help promote this. So I think there's 4 different kinds of trainings that are upcoming in the next 3 months or so. So I would encourage all of you, by simply Googling Hague Domestic Violence Project, you can make your way to their website and find information. You can download the practice guide if there's anybody that you know who you think might be interested in learning about this or taking on one of these cases. It can be somebody who's interested in advocacy. It can be someone who's interested in taking on a case for a particular person. That would be great. So that's why I wanted to mention that one. And the other project that we were interested in sharing today is from the Equal Rights Advocates, and we're honored to be joined by their executive director today. And we wanted to also share a video that they had produced. This is part of their Let Her Work project. And Let Her Work has a series of videos about women. I think it'd be easier for me to show the video and then let their executive director explain some more of the details. And I have to run to the side to lower the light, so hang on just a minute.
I wasn't that type of person I would ask for assistance or anything. When I came out of jail, and it was important for me to have a job because I needed to have money. I have to survive. I just want to work. My dad was an alcoholic, so it was normal to see my dad being drunk every weekend. My dad used to physically abuse my mom, and all I ever wanted was to be loved. My self-esteem was really low. When I was looking into it, my first boyfriend was like, all I ever wanted was attention. Even though I get mistreated, verbally, get called names, they would be unfaithful to me, and I would forgive them, go back to them, because I thought that's all I ever was gonna get. And I thought that's what I deserved. Growing up, I was like, I'm never gonna grow up and be like my father. When I realized, like, well, you know what, I am like him. You know what, I gotta change. I'm not meant to sit in prison. The last time I came out of jail, no matter what, I had to work. I applied and applied many jobs. So I checked off, yes, I do have felonies, because I was being honest about it. If I check off no, they're gonna say, oh, I'm a liar and I'm still the same person. I was always rejected because of my criminal history, even though I wasn't that same person from back then. And I know know that in life I have to work. I can't be sitting at home and be chilling and relaxing. I don't use drugs no more and I don't drink alcohol. That society doesn't give people a second chance.
So with that, I'd like to welcome Noreen Farrell, the Executive Director from the Equal Rights Advocates.